Hello, my name's Caroline Weaver, and I'm from Body and Soul Companion. It's my spiritual direction ministry, and I'm a regular spiritual director, but I'm also an Ignatian director. So I am guiding you through the Ignatian exercises. And we are on week 26, day 5, and today Jesus is entering Jerusalem. He's just been anointed by Mary in Bethany, and then he's on his way to Jerusalem. So before we get to the imaginative contemplation, I wanted to talk about Jerusalem again because I'd done it a while back. And so I just am going to read from that wonderful book I've read from before, Imagine You Walked with Jesus. And this is background about first century Palestine. So Jerusalem and the temple Jerusalem is located in the middle of the region of Judea, and it sits on a plateau in the Judean mountains, and it's about 2,500 feet above sea level. It is the largest city around with perhaps 100,000 residents. This is in first century Palestine during Jesus' time. 3 times a year during the festivals of Passover, Pentecost, and booths, religious pilgrims flood the city, swelling the population to as many as 1 million people. During these festivals, the city is crowded not only with people, but with the animals they have brought to sacrifice at the temple. And tomorrow I'll give more background on the temple. The city is surrounded on all sides by tall, thick walls, fortified with tall towers. Jerusalem is divided into 2 main parts. The wealthy and the elite live in the neighborhoods of the upper city, so called because it sprawls over a hill overlooking the rest of the city. King Herod I rebuilt much of the upper city in the years before Jesus' birth, and with blocks of large houses and mansions divided by wide streets, stately plazas, and public buildings. The city's wide main thoroughfares are paved with stones weighing as much as 19 tons. An underground sewer system collects runoff water, and more than 50 miles of pipes and aqueducts supply water to the city's main ritual baths. Although Jerusalem sits amid a range of low mountains, the 2 most important are the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount. The Mount of Olives is located just to the east of the city, and it is named for the olive groves that cover its slopes, and it is also home to a huge ancient cemetery dotted with thousands of hand-dug burial caves. And Bethany is a village that's facing east on the southeast slope of the Mount of Olives. So that's what we're looking at is where Bethany is, and Jesus has just been anointed at Bethany, so he's going up to Jerusalem. So just a little bit more background about what's happening in this scene. So now when you enter the scene, you can visualize the upper city and the walls. You can visualize all of that if you'd like. I just thought it'd be nice to give that background. So this is background specifically about Jesus entering Jerusalem and what's happening in the scene. So his choice to enter Jerusalem riding a colt rather than a war horse would have been understood by his disciples as a fulfillment of the words of the prophet Zechariah. It's in Zechariah 9:9, and I am going to give a link to another meditation specifically on Zechariah. It's on my Dropbox. So the words are, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. Lo, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." So again, many prophecies about Jesus, and we did that before the birth of Christ. We did the ancestry of Jesus, his blessed history, and part of that was the prophecies about him, and this is another prophecy about him. So the disciples' shouts reflect this understanding of Jesus as the Messianic King who brings divine peace. Spreading cloaks on the road is the way a king was typically greeted. It is a dramatic gesture, considering the outer garment this outer garment was a person's most valuable piece of clothing. And I've talked about that in previous um, guided contemplations about there was the inner thing and then the outer tunic and then the outer garment and cloak. It was very important. And actually, that's what Bartimaeus, when he pushed off his cloak and popped up, that's what it was. It was a way to protect yourself from the weather. It was also a blanket at night. So for them to spread those things out was a big deal. And then just to background, this will get into tomorrow more. The Pharisees, on the other hand, may have been concerned that the disciples' acclamation of Jesus as king would sound like rebellion to the Roman occupiers, because Jerusalem was occupied, well, that whole region was occupied by the Romans. So that is the background to the story. So as I'm reading it, I'd love for you to visualize Jerusalem and his journey from Bethany to Jerusalem. And then tomorrow we'll go to the temple. I broke it up as it is a lot, and this is a separate thing. So I invite you to close your eyes, to take a deep breath, and relax wherever you're seated. With each exhale, to relax any tense muscles. From your toes to your bottoms of your feet, to your legs, to your trunk of your body, your bottom sitting on the chair, your shoulders and arms, neck, and even your face. Relax into God's presence. And then relax your mind. With your gaze on God, know that He cares for you. In any person or situation you're carrying, I invite you to give that person or situation over to God. And with your gaze fixed on God, know that His gaze is fixed on you with love. Receive His loving gaze. Lord, we pray that more of our day would be directed to your service and praise. And we seek the grace to see you, Jesus, more clearly, love you more dearly, and follow you more nearly as we meditate and contemplate you, Jesus, entering Jerusalem on a donkey. Matthew 21, 1 through 11. When they had approached Jerusalem and had come to Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied there, and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord has need of them,' and immediately He will send them." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. The disciples went and did just as Jesus had instructed them, and brought the donkey and the colt, and laid their coats on them, and he sat on the coats. Most of the crowd spread their coats in the road, and others were cutting branches from the trees and spreading them in the road. The crowds going ahead of him and those who followed were shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest. When he had entered Jerusalem, all the city was stirred, saying, Who is this? And the crowds were saying, This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee. So who are you in this story? Are you one of the disciples? A passerby? One of the religious leaders? Who are you in this story? So I want you to imagine the festive procession into Jerusalem. Remember, it's the Passover. And that city of 1,000 people was swelling to 1 million. So look around you and see the buildings. See the upper city. Hear the throngs of people. You're on your way with Jesus from Bethany, 3 miles away, to the city. But you can probably hear more and more action, more and more sounds of crowds as you go. And they're at the Mount of Olives, and Jesus says to 2 disciples, Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied there and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, The Lord has need of them, and immediately he will send them. Remember, and maybe you're one of the disciples and you remember Zechariah 9:9. Say to the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. You've always thought the coming king would be on a war horse. A donkey? Ponder that for a bit. Then see the disciples run, and they find the donkey and the colt. See them lay their coats, their outer tunics, on the donkey. And then see Jesus get up on the colt, on the donkey, and sit. What do you hear? What do you smell from the donkey? See Jesus sitting. See all the throngs of people coming into Jerusalem. Hear the murmur of the crowds. And as he's coming on the road, hear the clop, clop, clop of many, many of the donkey's hooves and the colt's, but also the feet of all the people coming into the city. And then see most of the people make a way for Jesus and taking on their outer coats, putting them on the road. Going ahead of the donkey. And then seeing some people cut branches from the trees, spreading them on the road. Making way for the coming King. Knowing that was typically how a king was greeted. Think about that. Why were they spreading their coats? What do you feel as you see this coming king riding on a donkey? And if you're a bystander, take off your coat. Spread it on the road. Cut down a branch and put it on the road, greeting the coming king. The crowd, see the crowd going ahead of him on the donkey, and then the people behind him, hear them shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And see him enter Jerusalem, the walled city of Jerusalem, and hear the murmur of the crowd saying, "Who is this?" And then hear the answer, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." Look at Jesus. How does he respond to the words and actions of the crowd? How does he respond to the coats being laid and the branches being laid and the shouts, "Hosanna in the highest"? How does he respond? What's the expression on his face? And where are you in the scene? Are you out in front? Are you behind yelling "Hosanna in the highest"? Are you right alongside him? Or are you watching from a distance? Where are you in that scene? And what's the expression on your face? And then think about the fact that he enters as the King of Peace, humble and riding on a donkey. How does this title fit with your experience of him? Does Jesus bring peace into your life? Have a colloquy, conversation with him. Prince of Peace riding on a donkey. And I will have a link to a song by Michael Card about this very scene.